if that client said jump, they would say how high. I mean, it was just, they would do things to accommodate that client's demands that were just comical in retrospect.
From humble beginnings, Insurance Claim HQ has grown to one of the largest property casualty firms in the country. We didn't do it alone, and you shouldn't either. Every week, we're talking to claims professionals and top experts from all over, all to help you grow your business and make you stronger. Let's level up together. I'm Galen Hair. Welcome to the Level Up Claims Podcast. I'm Galen Hair. If you're serious about winning in this industry, June 12th of 2026 matters. The Level Up Claims Summit brings together serious operators who want to sharpen their edge and separate from the pack. No fluff, no vendor circus, just real conversations with people who are actually moving this industry forward. Seats are intentionally limited. We keep the room exclusive. Once the room is full, registration closes. If you're ready to compete at a higher level, don't wait. Go to levelupclaim.com and request your seat now. I'll see you on June 12th. Running a business comes with a lot of moving parts: contracts, compliance, construction projects, and sometimes litigation. Today's guest, Matthew Fornaro, has been helping South Florida business owners, contractors, and lawyers navigate these challenges for 2 decades. He combines experience from large law firms with the insight of running his own practice, helping businesses prevent legal problems before they become crises. Let's jump in. Matthew, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, we have a similar background in that we both came from the large law firm world. Where were you?
I was here in South Florida at Greenspoon Martyr and Schutz and Bowen, which are both Am Law 200 law firms and have only gotten bigger since I left.
Yeah, I'm an old, I'm from Ropes and Gray originally up in New York. So, it's a different world. And I think half of the people wouldn't believe the stories if they could hear them. Not necessarily the sexiest world. Initially, a lot of making binders and reading documents, but nevertheless, a very, very different world.
Yeah, a lot of interesting stories, a lot.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, things that honestly people wouldn't believe if we told them. So, which we can't anyway.
Yeah.
So what caused you to strike out?
Maybe off the air we'll talk, maybe.
Yeah, maybe it'll be my posthumous biography that I'll release. But no, what caused you to kind of strike out on your own? I mean, I know what led me to it, but everyone's story is so different.
Yeah, so, I I don't want to say plateaued, but I hit like a ceiling in big law, and I had the opportunity to go work for an even bigger law firm back in 2015, doing more like commercial litigation and like commercial finance stuff, which I was like really prevalent at back in the day or whatever. So I had this offer, and I was thinking to myself, like, what am I gonna do? Like 2 or 3 years from now, I'm gonna be like, oh, I've hit a plateau. Like I'm, at a certain level, and unless I want to, make like an equity buy-in or do something crazy like that, I'm never gonna do more, make more money. So I decided, you know what, this is the last chance I'm probably ever gonna have in my life to go out on my own and do my own thing. So that's what I did. And then I wanted to focus on helping smaller and medium-sized businesses and startups and entrepreneurs, because I kind of felt that they were underserved and definitely undervalued by bigger law firms. So that was kind of my mantra and my starting point.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, I've seen that firsthand. I think the bigger law firms are like nice to those people, but don't really want them as clients because they can't afford their large bills. Uh, and then, of course, the second they become successful, these law firms are like, "Hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
So good to see you. Congratulations on all your success." Um, and loyalty is kind of an interesting thing, right? It's all over the news right now, just given where we are politically and how things are working. But I found, representing a lot of small businesses, that those small businesses didn't always, some of them grew with you, and that was really, really cool, right? But others they would very much kind of grow and then be like, okay, now up to the next step. So what was kind of your approach to maintaining your client base and keeping those clients as those clients grew?
Sure. So, I keep in touch with everyone as much as I can. Like I have all my, email connect newsletters and things like that. It's always send to my clients and things like that. And then I always, bespoke subjectively reach out to, valued clients and other clients who I know are ongoing business concerns and stuff who kind of haven't really disappeared. And you know, I reach out to them like, hey, what's going on? I'm not charging you or anything for, speaking to you. I just want to know, how you're doing, how you been, what's been going on, you need anything, you growing, you changing, you buying, you selling, you hiring people. And just kind of not really, I'm not trying to get them to come give me work to do. I'm just, getting, I guess, data or information about their life cycle in their business. So then if, I can help other businesses who are in similar situations or who are going through what they've gone through or are gonna go through what they're gonna go through. So I kind of use it as a touchstone.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And, it doesn't matter whether you're representing businesses or individuals. I think people like to be talked to and they like to know they're cared for. And that's kind of universal. But you did not learn that in Big Law. So, what are some Big Law lessons that you learned that you feel like have translated well to how you represent clients today?
Um, well, it's a I don't have to tell you, it's a totally different mindset and totally
Hmm.
different approach. I mean, you know, big law stuff, a lot of it doesn't work on a smaller scale or for smaller clients or for certain kinds of clients. But, what big law does have is a lot of good systems and a lot of good programs and technology that they use that I've kind of paralleled and integrated. And obviously, it being 10 years later, heavily updated a lot of what I learned there as far as keeping accounts receivable manageable, dealing with clients, how to do certain business things. Like that was pretty good for big law for figuring out how to do that. So even though as an attorney, you're kind of removed from the actual business processes that are going on behind the scenes at a big law firm, but you kind of get an idea of what's going on, but you're not really like in there doing it.
And also, I think honestly, man, just it's not a politically correct answer, but it's true. Just like the balls you have to grow to live in that world. Like
Yeah.
I have a case right now, huge case. They brought in the biggest firm from Atlanta to oppose us, and it's like I can't tell you how many times it's me versus 8 attorneys sitting at a table. I'm like,
No,
I just don't care
no,
because I know how things work over there. So I'm not scared by a quote unquote show of force. Like candidly, they can just go screw themselves. I know what's going on behind the scenes. I know what billing is happening. I know where their weak spots are. And, my job is to do the best I can for my client. And look, 1 versus 8, there are things they will likely best me on, right? In terms of just being able to outwork me in terms of sheer number of hours. However, I also know that there's a lot of information lost as it goes from the junior associate to the mid-level associate to the senior associate to the junior partner to then the partner that actually will make the argument at the hearing. I mean, it's like a game of telephone, you
yeah.
know?
No, I know,
So,
it's funny. Yeah, it's funny dealing with big law firms being, a small law firm because you can see, their en masse force that you just kind of described, like, doesn't really work sometimes and it's just totally wasteful. And, like, I know I have a case where it's essentially two Fortune 500 companies fighting each other over charitable donations to a charity, and I represent the charity. So I'm one of the co-defendants along with one of the other companies, and the other company is suing to get all their donations back. It's a huge thing, but it's interesting because the other defendant is a Fortune 500 company. It's represented by a really large law firm, who a national law firm, and they literally have four full-time attorneys at various levels who it seems all they do is work on this case. And like,
Yeah.
that's it. Like they're very nice to me. We cooperate, we're cooperating on our defense and everything, but it's just I get emails at all times from them. I get materials from them. They redo everything like 2 or 3 times. Like they amend everything. And it's incredible. And then it was funny because, we're on a docket here in South Florida, and the dockets are big because they're trying to move a lot of cases now in Florida. So we don't know if we're going to go, in January or February or March. And one of the attorneys is pregnant. So they're
Mhm.
trying to get a special set or a date certain for our trial to take place before, she's due. And she's the fourth chair. And they like legitimately went into court and they're like, yeah, the fourth chair, is pregnant. We need to get a date certain. And the judge is like, well, don't you have 3 other attorneys in front of her who are trying the case? And they're like, well, she's integral with the team. So it's just funny to see that kind of, I don't want to say overstaffing, but it's a totally different world. It's a totally different mindset. It's a totally different budgeting and time process.
Oh, absolutely. And it's one of the reasons, though, that those big law firms end up being so sensitive to the economics of, the country at any given moment. Because, as you mentioned, sometimes it feels, even if it's not true, that those attorneys are staffed on like one case or two cases max. And when that happens, as soon as the litigation landscape slows down because corporations decide it's not worth spending millions of dollars to have disputes because they're worried about their long-term outlook currently and like whatever economic time we're in, you start to see those mass layoffs and stuff, which I mean, I don't want to date you, but I'll date myself. I was coming into big law right as mass layoffs were happening. I was one of those original ones that got offered, oh, we'll give you half your salary for a year if you just delay coming. And I remember when that happened, and those firms are so sensitive to the economics. A little unlike everyone's sensitive to economics, including our clients and all the people we represent, and certainly your clients as smaller businesses. But when you're running a small law firm, you can probably go find more cases to pay your bills if you lose a client. What you can't do if you have 1,000 lawyers that each are working on one case is find clients that can pay that many millions of dollars a year in order to keep your doors open. So it's just a different world.
Yeah, no, I felt a symptom of that, particularly when I was at one law firm, because they were heavily, heavily invested in one client that my whole, division, whatever you want to call it, was working on. And they would, if that client said jump, they would say how high. I mean, it was just, they would do things to accommodate that client's demands that were just comical in retrospect.
Now, it strikes me kind of that running a business, it's got a lot of different parts, right? But we can kind of break those into a few basic ones. So contracts, biggest one, right? Um, could you give us kind of your top red flags you see when you're helping negotiate contracts for business owners? Or more importantly, maybe when a business owner comes to you after everything has gone absolutely belly up and like, you're like, well, here's the red flag you should have seen, and this is why you should have hired someone early.
Yeah. Well, obviously dealing with a lot of small businesses and entrepreneurs, they're either first time business people or they just got into business or, they don't know a lot about how to run a business or anything. So they try to, I don't want to say cut corners, but they don't budget for professionals accordingly like they should. So they try to do as much as they can themselves and try to shortcut like the attorney or the accountant or, other professionals. So a lot of what I see are, DIY contracts that they made themselves that they got off the internet, or even worse, they got off of AI, and they're just a disaster. Or on the other hand, the other side was represented by counsel and has a totally beyond one-sided contract that now, you know, my client's like the victim of and has to deal with. So there's a lot of, just bad contracts that I see that are just not, I don't want to say professionally done, but aren't like up to snuff. And then there's a lot of one-sided contracts, particularly for like vendor contracts or commercial leases or thing. Probably commercial leases are probably the most one-sided contracts there are. Where, I just go to the client in a nice way. I'm like, did you did you get a chance to negotiate this or no, it's take it or leave it. I signed it. And then we have to go fix it from that point, or there's an issue because of one of the onerous terms, or there's an issue because of missing terms because they got it themselves off the internet. So, it's a little bit of, bad contracts that they bring to me, or, one-sided contracts that they bring me that are too good for the other side is a lot of what I deal with.
So, some business owner is sitting back thinking, okay, this sounds great, but I cannot afford to go to Matthew for every single contract I have. What's your response to that?
Well, you can't afford not to because, like I was saying a little bit earlier, running a business is not a hobby. It's a full-time profession, or it's a big investment in your life. And part of that business is you need to comply with formalities, obviously. And another thing to do is you got to realize that you have a team of professionals who will help you with your business, and you don't have to do it all yourself. And you have to integrate those professionals into your business. And those professionals are attorneys, accountants, bankers, web people, things like that, depending on what your business is. And, you need to budget the money and you need to budget the time to have that as part of your cadre of people that you depend on, because as much as you want to do it all yourself and have like a one-man band, it's not going to work out that well if you do it that way. And I guarantee you that the proactive and anticipatory stuff that we do at the beginning of your business, or, at the beginning when you make a change or you do something, is going to be a lot less expensive than the reactive stuff we have to do if you're involved in a lawsuit, or we have to go and fix things later on. So I always encourage, new business owners or entrepreneurs who are thinking of business, you have to have the mindset that you need to work with other professionals, and you need to budget to have that as part of your business plan, to have that accounted for, because if you don't, you're going to have problems.
And I would say the same probably goes for compliance issues too, right? I mean, again, I would guess much easier to go to you first and say, hey, what do I need to do to make sure I don't get in trouble? As opposed to come to you when there's an enforcement action or a lawsuit being like, hey, you know, I was out of compliance, right?
Yeah, it's a lot easier to just revise a contract than it is to navigate through a lawsuit.
All right, unpopular question. When I was looking you up, it said you represent a number of legal professionals too. Who are they truly as difficult clients as one would guess?
Classic lawyer answer, it depends,
Good job.
because, you know, it depends because look, okay, I am, all up in my practice, my business, representing my clients, my stuff. I know what my lane is. My lane is business law, commercial litigation, you know, 10% transactional. I don't stray outside of that lane. I don't pretend to know that I'm a bankruptcy expert, or I'm a trust and estate expert, or I'm a criminal law expert. So I don't even, no. I do my thing. Okay. So, obviously, like I have a, estate and trust plan that I went to an attorney and had them draft it. And I trusted the attorney to do it. And I didn't say anything. I'm just like, here's what I'd like to have happen. And I just let her draft it. And I'm like, okay, where do I sign it? And it's got everything I need. I wasn't overcorrective or whatever. And so some of my clients who are attorneys are like that. They're like, okay, great, man. Come up with your strategy, whatever. Sounds good. Obviously I consult them before I do anything anyway. It's just like I do all clients. And I'm like, well, I'm going to do A, B, and C, and probably think about doing this, this, and this. And a lot of them are like, great. And then a lot of them are like, very hands-on and very, I don't want to say overbearing, but they're like, well, let me see the pleadings before you file them. Or I've done some case law research. I'd like you to incorporate this in there. Or, I'd like to appear at the hearing with you. You know, just stuff like that. And I mean, it's fine. I mean, some people like I have the ability to turn off my attorney hat when I'm a client. Some people can't do that. And it, it makes it more difficult to represent them because, I like to think I know what I'm doing. and you can put your trust in me because I'm probably not going to screw it up real bad. But some people just can't let go and do that. And they have to, attorneys, some people always have to be in control and do whatever. And some of my clients, my attorney clients are like that.
Yeah, I've had the same type in the same month. So in the first party world, every once in a while, I will get calls from attorneys who I think smartly figure that this is not their area, so they probably shouldn't handle their own claim, or some of them tried and then realized it was just more complicated. So, I remember just a couple of months ago, I had 2 different calls with 2 different potential attorney clients, and one said, "Yeah, I do high asset divorces, so I'm just gonna sit back and watch what you do and learn." And I was like, "Great." And sure enough, that's what he did. We've had a great experience with this client. He's been fantastic, and sometimes he'll ask questions, but the questions are like questions I enjoy as a lawyer. Hey, why did you make that choice? What did you mean when you said that? Is there a reason you said that? I don't mind answering those questions. Because it just to me shows interest. But then I had another one was like, every pleading gets run by me. I'll be at every hearing. And I was like, I mean, if you just want to handle it yourself, that's fine.
Yeah.
If you don't feel like you need us, that's okay. I don't want business out of it that you don't want to send me. But I think that's true, not just for lawyers. I asked the question in that context, but any professionals, right? A lot of professionals want to take charge of an area that they think is adjacent to their area. I think your example is great, right? Like, not all doctors are the same. Just because you're a fantastic cardiologist does not mean you should be in the room during someone's neurosurgery, because you are not a brain surgeon, right? And I think it's hard, given how many of us as professionals have put years and years and years of work into our craft, to remember that knowledge is sometimes very limited to a very specific subspecialty, even in states where you're not supposed to say specialty. It still nevertheless is a specialty, whether we can advertise that or not. All right. We're winding down on time, so I have a couple more questions I want to ask you. So the penultimate question: if you are a business owner sitting at home, what are 2 or 3 pieces of advice they can take from your mouth to their ears right now to help improve the stability and safety of their business today?
Comply with all business formalities. Don't do anything half-assed. Make sure you have written documents in place for everything possible. And most importantly, and it should have been done before you started your business, but if you don't have it now, have a detailed written business plan that you constantly update anytime any event happens with your business.
Love that. Matthew, you've been generous with your time, and for you, literally, time is money. So before you go, I would like to ask you one last thing. What does it mean to you to level up?
Well, it's interesting for 2026 for me to level up. I'm actually way into AI. That could have been a whole nother show that we talk about all AI stuff. So I am leveling up my technology by integrating responsibly, because I'm always in charge and I always check everything and I make sure everything's correct. Nothing happens without my approval. But I am leveling up with a insane level of AI integration into all parts of my law firm.
That's awesome. Well, maybe that is a subject for another episode. It's happening so much, and I agree with you. If you don't want to do it irresponsibly, spoken like a responsible lawyer. Thank you, sir. But if you aren't doing it at all, you're definitely putting yourself at an disadvantage. Matthew, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Galen. Thank you for having me.
I'd like to thank Matthew Fornaro for joining us on the podcast. As he said, comply with all business formalities. Make sure your stuff is locked down and have a good business plan in place. But most importantly, if you can put out a fire before it becomes a full-blown blaze, do so. And I know sometimes it hurts to spend that money and that time, but it's so important to the long-term viability of your business. Follow us on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe to the show if you want more conversations like this. And if you're serious about operating at a higher level, join us June 12th at the Level Up Claims Summit. Limited seats, exclusive room. Request your invitation at levelupclaim.com.